I became obsessed with hypnosis when I was around about 18 years old, and this is in 1992. So back then, I mean, there wasn't much available. I didn't have the internet or anything like that, so I kind of had to get hold of books. I had a friend who was a magician, and he actually taught magic in the magic circle, so he could get hold of some books for me that were not available to the public. So I kind of had access to a lot more resources than most people would have, and I kind of devoured them. I was obsessed with this, but I didn't actually believe it. So I was fascinated by it, but I didn't think it was real. I thought that all of the people in stage hypnosis shows and that kind of stuff were acting, and I kind of thought that hypnotherapy was placebo, and I didn't even really believe in what we now call the hypnotic trance, and I certainly didn't believe I could do it. If it was real, I thought it required some kind of psychic power that I didn't have. I'm just a normal guy, so I didn't believe I could do it. But I was obsessed, so I learned everything that I could. And then one day in about 1993, I'd been learning all this for about a year or so. I was on holiday with my sister and a few of her close friends that I didn't know, and they didn't know me. And I was reading some books about hypnosis. And one of her friends, a guy called Mark, he asked me if I would hypnotize him. And it was very obvious from the way that he asked that he believed that I could. He just wanted me to, he wanted to experience it. So this was my opportunity to try out all of this stuff that I'd been studying for about a year and a half. And I've got to say, I was nervous as hell. Inside, I was shitting myself. I didn't think I'd be able to do it, and I thought I was going to look stupid, but he thought I could do it. And, you know, that's important. He believed that it would work. So I saw this as an opportunity, and on the outside, I tried to appear confident, and I was kind of like, yeah, no problem, I can hypnotize you. Now, the method that I used was progressive relaxation, which is what I recommend that you start on, and go on to the rapid stuff a little bit later. But it was a really, really basic hypnotic induction that was just kind of like you are feeling sleepy kind of stuff. Now, when you learn this normally, you've got the basic layer, and then you layer on top of that all these hypnotic language patterns. And I'm going to teach you one of these at a time. Now, I'm going to get back to my story in a moment, but I just want to tell you a very quick aside. This comes from a really fantastic hypnotist called Igor Ledachovsky, and he talks about these hypnotic language patterns that you layer like a pencil. And each one, if you imagine breaking a pencil, is very, very easy. But if you put 2 or 3 together, it gets more difficult. If you put 5 or 6 together, it's almost impossible. And that analogy is like these language patterns that you layer on top, one on top of another. Once you've got quite a few of these all together, it's very, very difficult for that person to resist going into hypnosis. So it kind of gives you a very visual image of how powerful this is when you layer this. But this first induction that I was doing with Mark, it had none of that. It was just the very basic layer. So there was no language patterns, maybe 1 or 2, but it wasn't very complicated. It was very, very basic. But he kind of responded. And when he started to respond to my suggestions, I really thought he was faking, and I felt like a complete fraud and an idiot, and I didn't really know what to do. And then by chance, I told Mark that every breath that he took, he would get colder and colder. And that suggestion changed everything. Within seconds, he was wearing kind of like a short sleeves like I got on today, so I could see his bare arms. And within seconds of me giving that suggestion, all of the tiny hairs on his arms all stood on end, and he had goosebumps, and it was amazing. That was incredible to see, and he was shivering. Now, you can act cold, you can shiver. It's easy for anyone to do that, but you can't fake those tiny hairs standing up, and you can't fake the goosebumps. So he's having this physical response just to my suggestion. There was no change in temperature at all, but his body thought that there was. And that was incredible. That turned me into someone that actually believed in hypnosis. Now, what I then did is I changed my suggestion from cold to hot. And I said, now every breath that you take, it's getting hotter and hotter. Now, within moments, again, all of this went away. So he stopped shivering, and he started to pull at his clothes, and his face flushed. He went really bright red, and then beads of sweat started to trickle down his brow. And you could see it was really uncomfortable. It was shortened breath, and he looked like he was struggling to breathe. Now, I didn't leave him like that for very long. I told him, all that was going away and it was going normal. But he was like that for long enough for the physiological response that he was having it just could not be faked. It was astonishing. So I think everybody there thought it was quite funny and they were laughing along and they kind of just expected that, he would do whatever I suggested. I was more impressed than anybody because for me, I didn't believe it would work. I thought he was faking. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was getting these physical symptoms: cold and shiver, goosebumps, and the little tiny hairs all standing on end, and then all that going away, and then actual sweat. Actual sweat was dripping from his brow, and his face was bright red, and he was pulling at his clothes. It was amazing. So that experience changed my life.